んばんは、構成員です。掃除の時間になりました。4棟北条沼にいる人、お風呂に入っている人、2棟ダヴィンチホールにいる人も各ブロックに戻って掃除を始めてください。なお、食堂にいる外出第一者の方も食事をとっている法医療生も掃除の時間なのでご協力お願いします。窓を開けて換気をして、最後はうがい手洗いを忘れずに、ゴミは10時半までにお願いします。以上、構成員でした。
Alright, time to go. Now, this is Molt. Welcome back. I actually already tried to make a couple clips for this episode, but it didn't work out. The way I was recording it made the recording sound just awfully shitty in quality. And I was actually was feeling a little worried about what I would do. I wasn't sure how I could make some recordings. Konnichiwa. Tsukare. So, basically, I realized that I could use my iPad and actually go for a walk. So hopefully all this traffic noise and wind doesn't mess up the quality of the recordings. But regardless, it'll be better than had I stayed back and tried to record it with my computer. That method is just no good. The internal electronics of the computer make this awful hissing sound, and you just can't hear anything. It's distracting. So anyway, I'm in Japan. I've been in Japan since September. Today's like December 6th or something. And I thought it'd be a perfect way to reacclimate the Molt listeners by taking you all out on what has become my nearly daily routine. Basically, here I have a job. I'm an English teacher, 3 days a week, Monday, Thursday, Friday. And the days that I am not teaching, I like to walk to the train station, which is about 6-mile round-trip walk. And so I will usually go Tuesday, Wednesday, and then weekends and stuff, and just hang out at the train station, just doing whatever. There's a coffee shop there that I like called Tully's. I go there often. There's music stores, like with instruments. I go to the Keiyo-Hachioji train station and play drums pretty often. Electronic drums, and I don't know, it's just it's a fun thing to do. I enjoy it. It's my hobby. And so, having said that, it's a long walk to go to the train station, and as you can probably hear, a little noisy. Hachioji is a suburb of Tofu. A suburb of Tokyo. So, although it's not the city itself, it is still city-esque. And so I've actually thought about the way that I could go to make it the best listening experience possible. And so I'm going to be taking a route that goes through a park. And that way I'll be able to, better speak without interruptions of buses like the one that just went by and people and things like that. So pretty soon the audio is going to improve and you should be able to notice a difference, hopefully. So let's see. That's sort of the catch-up. I'm in Japan. It's funny, when I first got to college, going to Japan was one of the only things that I really wanted to accomplish in going to college. I felt like Japan, if I wanted to go to Japan, going to college would be a good avenue to get there soon, to get there easily, and I guess that's it, to get there soon and easily. And it was true. Filled out a study abroad application, did all the necessary paperwork, and senior year of college, spent 6 months in Japan. Very, very trippy experience, no doubt. And so this podcast is going to be a lot about what the whole process of living in Japan is like. I wrote down a bunch of points that I want to get to. Probably not all in this episode. And I sort of anticipated this. Walking on this path that I'm going is going to be very hilly. And pretty gentle hills, but to talk and walk, it's going to make me a little winded, I think. But it's daijoubu, it'll be fine. Not a problem. So, cross the street real quick. We're getting close to the park. Close to the silence, the sacred silence. The first thing I want to talk about today, and I feel like I'm at an English forum class speaking like that. Alright everyone, the first thing I want to talk about today, that's sort of a deal. It's this idea I've had while I've been here, and it's sort of been the thing that's made me feel most free in terms of like getting to know who I am as a person and figuring out what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, so on and so forth. Those sort of like self-exploration things. When I first came here, I experienced something that I sort of think to myself, sort of call unimpinged language usage with impunity. And so that's like my first point, first talking point. And now I just got basically to the entrance of the park trail, so this should be a lot quieter soon, which is good because I don't want it to be too loud. I want to be able to speak freely. I think that's probably pretty important. So anyway, unimpinged language usage with impunity. So basically, to me, what that means I've experienced. When I came here, there was obviously an enormous language barrier. And something I realized while I've been here is that English is the world's language. And I didn't really know that living in America. And I think I probably would have not really believed it had I heard it, that English, I mean, if the world were to have to declare a language that's most spoken by most people, it would definitely, uncontestedly be English. Because I thought that when I came here, I would be speaking to people from, Germany, from Spain, from all these different countries in the world, and that I thought our common language would be Japanese. So I was kind of looking forward to having to, communicate with people from other, maybe romantic language-based countries in the language of Japanese, just to see, I felt like that would boost our speaking ability and understanding of the language quickly. But as it turns out, everyone who comes from a different country speaks English, and that's almost invariably so. Of all the people who are in the Yugakse population, the foreign exchange students, I can't think of a single one who can't speak English. I've talked with most, and they're from all diverse countries in the world: Ukraine, Thailand, China. China seems to be almost second to America in English speaking and English learning ability. But anyway, so that was sort of a little interesting realization that the world's language is certainly English. But back to unimpinged. Basically, well, hold on a sec. Still walking. So to me, it was sort of a interesting head trip to realize testing. Let's see how this goes. Testing. Little walk. Konnichiwa. Okay. Testing. A little bit of a wind. Will the wind be picked up? Question mark. Will the wind be picked up? Not sure. Okaeri nasai. 行ってきます。はい。All right. Had to take a little bit of a break. There was some road work going on, so I had to push the pause button. But now I'm back. I was able to climb up the hill that I was worried might have the most breathlessness. And it was definitely a breathless hill. Can't say much more about that. Can't argue with it. Just have to accept. Shogunai. So now I'm up towards the park, walking in a more residential area, much more secluded from traffic and excess noise, though there are a lot of houses here that are being constructed upon, perhaps reconstructed upon. So, anyway, back to the unimpinged. Basically, there was like this freeing feeling of no longer being in a country surrounded by people who understand you. And it was interesting because it might make you, I guess there's two possibilities at least, with this sort of a reality. And one's might be that you sort of dissolve into yourself and, I don't know. Well, one moment. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. I guess you could dive into yourself and sort of build up some walls against what's new and what's foreign, and sort of, cherish the way of expression that you have, and I don't know, refuse to acclimate. Or, this is sort of my experience, I feel like it freed me up to realize that a lot of, hang-ups, a lot of insecurities, lots of problems, worries, it's interesting how they don't transfer if there's a language barrier. For instance, I'll give two examples of what I mean that have two things that have contributed to this feeling. One, in Japan, public bathing. Throughout my, I guess, younger adolescent life, like ages maybe 12 to 17, maybe more. I was very nervous about being naked, very ashamed of my body, very worried that if people saw me, I'd be made fun of, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I had older friends, and so I was sort of a late bloomer, and if people were being like funny, taking people's towels, and on like church trips, for example, if we were all staying in like a hotel type situation, and guys like to have fun and take guys' clothes when they shower, or like open the door when they're showering and like throw back the curtains and stuff, and just do that kind of funny stuff. I would always be terrified of that, like heart racing really fast and sweaty, although if I'm in the shower, probably not too sweaty. But the first day I got here to Japan, I had to go and experience the ofuro, which is the bath, the traditional style bathing. And my Zanyose, my RA, was basically like showing me around the dorms, and then he said that we should go to the ofuro. And so we went together, and he told me, pretty funny English, that there was no shame. He just said, no shame, something like that. And then he got naked, and then I got naked, and so I've gotten comfortable with being naked in front of people, and I guess excel at it now. And that goes for Japanese people being naked in front of, and then also some American friends and, you know, other foreign students as well. It's just not that big of a deal, and that's pretty freeing. I was already pretty free of that insecurity, but I definitely feel rid of it now completely. So that's one thing, one cultural insecurity that doesn't transfer over, and so can't really be experienced, and so it can be shed. And then the other one, language usage. And so this is sort of where the whole title of unimpinged language usage with impunity comes from. It's sort of like this idea that even right now, I'm walking behind a Japanese person, and I can say anything I want. The most vile, disgusting curses or the most beautiful poetry that I can recall. And it all comes out the same. To their listening, there's no difference between, George Carlin's 7 Words and like a Shakespearean sonnet. And that's very interesting. It does a lot to perception of like right and wrong, good and bad. In terms of speech, that is. I mean, I'm not having a moral breakdown or anything, but it's just interesting to see how subjective things really are. And you can be aware of subjectivity to a degree when you're in an environment that I guess you've been in your whole life, but there's some sort of wool that's pulled from your eyes when you can actually travel a little bit and truly, experience just to what degree subjectivity really plays a part in, I guess, one's processing of reality. And so that's been a really big point for me. And it was first realized through words, first realized through unimpinged language usage with impunity, and now it's more of like a resonating feeling that I just feel every day. And it's caused me to be more outgoing, more brave with my questions. I don't have to worry about looking stupid, because it's almost guaranteed that I will be stupid if I ask a question to a Japanese person, because I'm a 21-year-old guy asking a question in a diction that's like, I don't know, probably the equivalent of an 8-year-old. So, there is a freedom in that, that sort of, retrogression. And I've really embraced it, really come to enjoy it. And like I said, it's a feeling now. And I really look forward to bringing that feeling back with me and exploring what sort of possibilities that kind of a feeling can have for me in a country with a people that all speak the same language. I'm really excited about that. And I guess that's about as much as can be said about that point. I thought that I would be more expressive, and maybe I would have, a couple months ago when I was really, really feeling it, going out with new people, talking to people, just, not having, really going out of comfort zone of conversation, just being sort of exploratory with my conversations and being unhindered. But I guess that is about as good as it gets with reporting about it now. And I have a bunch of other points, so it ain't no thing. It ain't no thing. I've actually come to a stop now. I think it might be good to take a little break and record a few things stationary, just for the sake of audio and all. And I've come to a nice little spot at the foot of some stairs that's kind of close to a forested area that kind of reminds me actually of my backyard in good old Atlanta, Georgia. Which actually, now that I say something like that, makes me remember that another interesting thing about being here in Japan has been my, what's the word? I don't want to say retrogression again, but I guess I have gone back to more southern, not roots, I don't really have southern roots, but southern expressions I've started using a lot. I don't know where I'd be without my daily usage of words like y'all and good lord and things that sort of reviled using when I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and now sort of find a sort of, I don't know, there's sort of a preciousness to them. They're sort of like, they seem more unique, not hearing them all the time. I represent the South to a degree, and so Southern hospitality and Southern comfort is funny to bring over. So I wanted to talk real quick about my plans for when I return to the United States, and that's not necessarily to say that I am in a rush to return, because I am definitely enjoying myself. But that being said, I do very much so look forward to coming back, because one thing that I've really realized in coming to Japan is that I'm a thoroughbred American, and if not necessarily an American, certainly a Westerner. The attractiveness of like the Japanese Asian kind of uniformity and like oneness of mind that I thought was very appealing from the outside looking in America has come to be a lot more of a hindrance, more of a I don't know. Well, self-expression is just not very high here in Japan. And, I mean, Japan obviously has a bunch of weirdos doing things that everyone has seen on the computer, on the internet, Japanese people being weird. But those are rare, the rare exception. You know, for the most part, Japanese people are very, very tame, very, well-composed, very, just so monotone, And that's not to say they're all like that, but if you're going to make generalizations, I think that that's a pretty correct one to color how people sort of behave here. I've read that Japan is built to be one of the most unhappy nations in the world, and coming here I can see how there's like fertile ground for that to be a possibility. And again, that's not to say that that's always the case, but daitai, usually, I think that there is, the potential to be very, confined in terms of self-expression here. And I don't think that's very healthy for the amount of time that people in this country seem to remain, so collected. It's not a full expression of what real humanity is. And so when you consciously have a society that revolves around suppressing that natural instinct, that thing that makes us human, I think that can do things to your psyche, do things to your soul, and can cause a lot of self-destruction. And I know the suicide rate here in Japan, not to dip too far into morbidity, is pretty high. And I think recently in my economics class, actually, I heard the figure was something like 30,000 people a year commit suicide. And I don't know how many people commit suicide proportionally in the United States per se, but that's a very high number of people to be dying every year just from suicide, and so that's a shame. But so sort of a digression. But anyway, whoa, I walked back into the forest a little bit, actually, to use a little bathroom time, and so now I'm back in this forest, and there's some brush, a little bit of garbage piled up back here, and leaning on this pole that's actually not as stable as I thought. Almost fell. Anyway, so when I get back to America, which I'm very excited to do, as I say, one of the first things I really want to do is move back to Atlanta sure thing. Just, within the first 2 years, first 2 weeks of being home, I really want to have found an apartment, hung out with family, said hey to everyone, really reacclimated to to being home. But then I do want to move to Atlanta, and that's primarily because I'm going to be coming back in February, about a month after the spring semester has started at Georgia State University. And so I won't be able to take spring semester classes. And that being the case, that means that I'm going to have a semester off. And in that time, I really want to, I don't want to stop developing at this, fast pace that I have been while I've been here in Japan. I want to keep digging deeper into myself, into other people, into what the world has, in terms of possibilities for me and for other people. I want to keep exploring. And so I want to move to Atlanta within the first 2 weeks. And there's potential now also for Lauren, my sissy, to be living with me. She talked about maybe transferring to Georgia State. It is a hard thing for me to say for some reason. Georgia State. She's talked about transferring to Georgia State, in which case there's a potential for her and I to live together, and that would be so much fun. She and I have grown really, really close in these past few years since she started college, and so if we could live together, I know that we would make the most of that, and we'd really have a ball. So that would be really cool. That's yet to be decided on the part of most parties involved, so I'll just keep my fingers crossed in that respect. I really want to start a band when I get back. I guess I'm in a band right now, Harsh Peggy Boys, with Josh and Alex, but I don't know if that's going to be easy to pick back up once we get back. Lord knows I love the band, and I think the songs that we've recorded are bomb songs, no doubt. But we made a recording before I left, and it was a good quality recording with Noah Orisic as sort of the sound engineer and using his instruments and his recording equipment and everything. We made a solid 3-song EP. But the work that we did for that has yet to be edited by Josh and Alex and whoever else would be, approached for editing that material. And so the lack of enthusiasm for the editing of that makes me wonder if Harsh Peggy is still viable, if it's still going to be something that we all do when I get back. Again, I'm all for it. I've been listening to the rough recordings we've done of those songs, which I'll include some of those in this podcast. I've been listening to those recordings just ever since we made them months ago, back last summer. Love those songs. So I'm all for it, but I'm not sure. So if that doesn't work out, I'm definitely going to start another band with, new people. Sort of going back to wanting to continue to explore. I really want to meet new musicians, get new input, see what I can do musically, whether on guitar or drums, just really stimulate myself with some new musicianship and see how far that can take me. So I want to do that, get a house in Atlanta, and I want to work at a cafe. I want to work at a coffee shop. Haven't had a job, like a steady, part-time kind of college student job for a while. But if I could choose a perfect job for this time in my life, I'd really like to work at a coffee shop. Coffee shops have been, since starting college, for me, one of the most frequented places that I go. I really love exploring new coffee shops. I've been to a lot of the coffee shops in Atlanta, made a little hobby of exploring new ones until I had gone to most of the close ones to me. And so, the vibe of coffee stores is always right on for me. I really like the, it's sort of the opposite of a bar to me. That you go to a bar, you want to sort of feel a little more loose. You want to kind of fuzz your brain a little bit. But when you go to a coffee shop, I feel like it's more of a refinement of your brain. It's like you can really focus on something. And so I, in America, would go to coffee shops really often and do homework, a couple hours a day, go to a local neighborhood coffee shop. And I was lucky enough, and who is perspicacious? That's probably not the right word. I was lucky enough to find a coffee shop in Hachioji, where I'm staying, that offers me a good enough vibe, good enough coffee to kind of satisfy that hole in my life that I've been missing away from America. You know, a good solid cafe, not too corporate, not too, I don't know, more personal, you know, good vibe kind of place. Something like Octane or Dannemann's or Inman Perk, one of those Atlanta spots. So I want to work at a cafe. I want to commute every day on my bike. You know, best case scenario, I'll be working at Octane. You know, maybe I would love to work 5 days a week in the mornings. You know, bike to Octane in the morning, 4 or 5 mile bike ride. It's in the west side of Atlanta, over towards the more sketchy, more I don't know how to describe that, industrial area maybe. Biking over there every day, working whatever position I can get. I'm willing to do anything. I'm actually kind of excited because I know the owner, or not the owner, but the actual manager of Octane, because I had gone there so much. He and I had sort of started talking a little bit. His name's John. And I would see him around elsewhere in Atlanta. I saw him a couple times at Kroger, and we talked and stuff, and I think we had a nice little rapport going. So, you know, feeding off of that, I think if I go there and really plead my case for wanting to work at a coffee shop, and my availability, which will be, you know, anytime, and my sincerity about the job, you know, I'll be a dishwasher, whatever I need to be to experience the coffee house vibe for 7 hours a day and get paid for it, I'll do it. And so that's another thing I'm really looking forward to, and that's sort of how I'll finish out that semester, making a little bit of money, living in Atlanta, you know, having fun for the most part, but still working towards, you know, some sort of a higher goal, which is never attained, but always in view. It's like the horizon, you know, always sinking, never actually met. But that's not a bad thing. The rolling stone gathers no moss, and so shall I not gather moss. And so at the end of the semester, what would be the spring semester at Georgia State, I plan to take some summer classes and catch up as far as I can with my schooling to hopefully graduate by the end of the fall of 2012, hopefully graduate in that semester and then be done with school. And I don't really see much potential for me going to graduate school unless I find something that I'm really intrigued by between now and, you know, undergraduate graduation. And I realized what I've really been looking for that I haven't really found in terms of potential career in the future or potential graduate degree study programs in the nearer future. I haven't really latched on to any ideas. I haven't heard anyone present any fantastic ideas that seem so good that I would be a fool to not, you know, offer whatever I can to make those ideas become a reality. And I think to me, ideas are one of the most important things that we as humans have, one of the most important things that we as humans share. And I think it's ideas that have brought us to be as great as we are today. Everything we have, everything that we work for, you know, medical advances, technological advances, advances in art and literature and everything, they all are from ideas. And I'm a big fan of ideas. I watch TED Talks all the time, watch interviews of people. Right now I'm actually on a Charlie Rose kick. Anyone who doesn't know Charlie Rose should definitely Google his name and perhaps the name of someone else who they find interesting, you know, famous author, actor, director. I watched some really good Wes Anderson interviews yesterday and kind of got to know him as a person, which was very interesting. The mystique of Wes Anderson was sort of, you know, lowered a little bit. The Shaw of his mystique was lowered and more revealed. You know, when you see someone you see someone who you revere as some sort of a figure, whether it's a director or a famous person, whatever it may be, and you see the humanity behind their true person, you know. It's easy to sort of idealize someone like Brad Pitt or Wes Anderson, but when you actually see, you know, a 20-minute interview with someone can really expose a lot of humanity. And you see the vulnerability, you see the excitement, you see the passion. And for me, the passion is always what really enlivens my interest. As soon as I see that someone's passionate about something, I'm inclined to listen. I found that I can be interested in anything as long as someone has a genuine passion for what they're talking about. And that applies to everything. I have yet to find someone who's passionate about something that doesn't spark my interest as well in their explanation of it. I may not want to do it. I may not want to learn more after we have our conversation, but in the moment of conversation, I will be hooked on what this person is saying, just for the mere fact that they're, sharing their fire with me, and that fire keeps us both warm, so to speak. So yeah, I have yet to find one of those kind of ideas in Atlanta, in school, with my friends. Nothing yet to clutch onto and to really move forward with, a solid sense of direction. I haven't found that yet. I know it's there. I watch TED Talks and I see people talking about it. I know when they get bit. I know when you know what you want, and you know where you're going. I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like, but I just haven't found the avenue yet. But I'm searching, and there's that old Bible verse, "Search and you will find," and I believe that's true. In a certain degree, you make your own destiny. If you don't search, you don't find, and that kind of goes off into a whole nother topic of conversation. But anyway, those are my plans for when I return, and I am sorely looking forward to them. One more side note before I finish out this clip, something I've been doing recently. An interesting thing that has happened while I've been here in Japan has been my absolute adoration for the English language and just everything that we can do with it. The Japanese language, by comparison, is extremely diminished in its ability to really express, and that sort of goes back to what I was saying with, Japanese people, the the oneness of mind and expression. English really allows you to get into the nooks and crannies, the small subtleties of expressing yourself, and I really love that. I've been playing all these games on dictionary.com, trying to increase my vocabulary and learn new words and test the words that I know, make sure that, if I use a word like ubiquitous, I'm using it in the right context, meaning what I want it to mean. And it's interesting that, you never really realize what kind of a tool language is until you try to learn another one. And then you realize, wow, there's a lot of subtle, mechanics to this language that I didn't even realize, that I completely took for granted. English paints my reality. English is my reality. The construction of what I see in front of me with these trees, with these colors, with the wind blowing at my back, with the sun shining on my head, all of this is perceived to me through words. And so it's these words that are so powerful, they carry all this meaning and all this abstract quality to them that's so dear. And I didn't even realize it until coming here and realizing that, the construction of our language is very mechanical at a certain degree. And that's a precious thing to realize. It's sort of like when you take something for granted and then you have sort of a reality check, you realize what you have and how precious it really is. So I think that's a good line to leave on for right now. I think I might make another clip or so. I'm staring out onto Hachioji. It's a great picture. It might be the album picture for this episode. In fact, I think it will be. But that's it for now. More soon. I'd like to do a quick little clip, perhaps appropriately or inappropriately called an addendum. Not sure if that's the right usage of that word. I'll look it up later. But I'd like to add a little something to what I just said. And it was an experience I had while I was here. This is actually, I guess, a multi-layer thing I'm about to say, but I've gotten really into photography, taking pictures since I've been here, and I've actually been able to see like sort of a steady upward curve in the quality of the pictures I've been taking as I've taken more and more. And this enjoyment of photography has gone hand in hand with my recent enjoyment of hiking, and also something called haikyo, which I have yet to actually fully do a haikyo exploration, but soon I hope I will be yoku haikyo suru. Which a haikyo is basically a Japanese building that has been left to rot. In Atlanta, there's several examples that you can probably think of. Big industrial buildings that were vibrant maybe 30 years ago, but sort of have been left in disrepair, and no one goes there. It's covered in graffiti. Things are rotting. It's sort of a strange urban decay that is sort of contradictory to the surroundings. And so in Japan, following the burst of the economic bubble that Japan experienced from, starting in the 1950s to the late 1980s, there was a lot of development in Japan, similar to the mass development that was done in America before the crashing of the housing market that we're still sort of feeling the repercussions of in America. And so there's a bunch of developments, a bunch of houses, factories, so on and so forth, those kinds of things that are standing empty and just rotting away. And these things are beautiful in their own respect. It's to me, it's where nature and human creation kind of come back to the middle, where they meet. And so I want to go to these haikyo, and I want to take pictures of them, and just sort of be immersed in that sort of a decay. I think that kind of decay would be a little refreshing here in Japan, where everything is so status-oriented. Someone told me, a guy I met actually at the coffee shop, an American, he told me that people don't oftentimes have old cars in Japan. They're very status-conscious, and so if you have an older car, that means that you make less money, or maybe you don't care about your appearance, and there's lots of elements of shame that go into that. And so to go into a haikyo, an abandoned building in Japan, would be sort of, a nice little refreshing contradiction in that sort of respect. Bring back that entombed element of humanity that I feel the Japanese are largely lacking. Just that beauty goes hand in hand with ugliness, and you can't stay ugliness. You can't keep it at bay. The second you try to really, restrict ugliness is the moment that you usher in, a cheapness of what is beautiful, and you certainly amplify that which is ugly, because, ugliness has its own beauty to it, in a way. It's complementary to beauty, and you can't have one without the other, and you can't appreciate one without the other. And so the humanity offered by the haikyo to me is very appealing. And so back to photography, I want to take pictures of haikyo. Police are going by. I don't know what they're saying. My Japanese level is barely above conversational level. I ask where the bathroom is, where the McDonald's is, how to order another beer, that sort of thing. Hard to hear. Anyway, so yes, hiking is another thing that I've taken up recently, and that's refreshing in the same sort of respect that haikyo is refreshing in, because if you are hiking in one of the numerous mountains close to the area that I'm staying in, Hachioji, which Hachioji is located in a valley, very similar to Rome, Georgia, where my little Lalo is living. You can travel to these mountains and hike them. and I've been doing that recently, and actually have plans to do it again this weekend with one of my friends, Quick, who is from Hong Kong. Very intelligent guy. Quick reminds me a lot of Noah Orsic, and so for that reason, among many others, I really enjoy his company. Quick is a good photographer, so another thing he and Noah have in common, which I find very interesting. Perhaps in another podcast I'll have to talk about how many shared personality types I found here in Japan. And I found someone who reminds me of Noah, obviously in Quick. Found someone who reminds me of Stephen Abbott, a guy named Hide. I found someone who reminds me of my sister, a French-Canadian girl named Kristen. And so that, to me, sort of plays into what Carl Jung used to say. I guess used to, because he's passed away. But what Carl Jung said about archetypal personality types, and I see a lot of those archetypal threads here in Japan. There's the genetic possibilities that make up personality types, I think are finite. You've met someone who reminds you of someone else to like a shocking degree, and you can sort of guess what they're thinking, what they're doing, without really getting to know them, because you are basing your knowledge of this new person on the knowledge you have of an older person, a friend or a family member, and it's just strikingly similar. And I think that is obviously a human universal, and I've experienced it a few different times here while I've been in Japan, and maybe that's all there is to be said, but anyway, that's another interesting little tidbit. And so photography, to me, recently, has been a big hobby of mine. I'm very prone to doing things by myself, and I was more prone to be in a group setting when I first came to Japan, just for the sake of meeting new people and experiencing new things, but I've reverted back to my old roots of doing things singularly. And, there's sort of a cheapening to the experience when you do things by yourself. As one who has done most of the things that I have done in the past 4 or 5 years by myself, I've noticed that, it's hard to convey a good experience you had by yourself to someone else. It's not very interesting, and there's no real, tools of relation. Like, if I go for an awesome 40-mile bike ride or 60-mile bike ride to Atlanta one day, how do I convey that experience to someone who didn't go with me? It's not impossible, but I think it would bore the listener. And I don't like boring people with my conversations, because I don't like people boring me with theirs. So out of respect, I usually just keep it to myself. But having said all that, the introduction of the camera into my life, which was introduced to me by God, let me explain. I wanted a camera because the iPad was a little too clumsy to carry around with me every time I felt like I might want to take a picture, which it was my only means of taking pictures up until the time that I found this camera. So, that being the case, I wasn't taking very many pictures, and I was sort of lamenting that fact because there was so much to take pictures of. And we have this thing in our dorm block we call the gomiheya, and the gomiheya means literally trash room, and it's basically where all of the past foreign exchange students have deposited a lot of their garbage, a lot of the things that they didn't want to take with them back when they went back to their countries. And I intend to certainly contribute a fair amount of garbage when I leave. I don't want to take all the things I brought with me back to America, and so I definitely will be making a rich deposit, hopefully, into the Gomibeya, so that I won't be charged extra money to bring shit home that I don't really care about. And so, one day, we were all pretty fascinated when we first came to our block to live, all the foreign exchange students, and we would go into the Gomiheya somewhat often and just search around, see what it had in store, and there was a camera in there. And to me that was a very, auspicious finding, because I wanted a camera, and just at the same time that I wanted one was presented, and, from God. And so the camera now in my possession, with very few things needed to make it operational. I just had to buy a USB cord. I've been able to document anytime I go and do something by myself. And so recently I've taken, in the past month or so, I've taken probably 500 pictures or so of just everything I've been doing. Went to Kamakura, took a picture of my hike from Jimba Mountain to Takao Mountain, which is a 12-mile hike by myself, just documenting that whole process, which was pretty liberating. You know, I feel pretty liberated already, but the whole process of getting from my dorm room to where I needed to be to make that hike possible was difficult, and would have been difficult had it all been in English as well. But having the whole thing in Japanese, you know, exacerbates the difficulty, you know, more than tenfold, easily. It's very difficult to to right yourself out of a wrong when there is an intense and ever-present language barrier. So I was very proud when I finally got to the foot of Mount Takao, you know, 18 kilometers after starting, 6 hours after venturing out to really start the hike. You know, it felt good. It felt very, very accomplished. And so the camera has allowed me to have somewhat of a companion. You know, I don't feel like I'm by myself when I'm doing these things. I'm always looking for things to take pictures of, things that look interesting, things that look beautiful, things that look ugly. You know, I'm able to document and share these experiences, which make them all the more worthwhile. And one of the things I love most that Brittany has taught me during our relationship is to look up, just in general. And it's funny because she looks up all the time, and particularly, I mean, she looks up when she's hiking and, you know, when we're, I don't know, out in nature. She looks up, and she also trips a lot because she's looking up and not looking down at the roots and the rocks and the things that can, you know, trip you up. And I tend to look down, and so I don't trip as much, but I also don't see as much. And Brittany, a long time ago, when we first started dating, at some point taught me to look up. I don't even think she taught me consciously. She did, taught me one way or another. And, you know, having the camera with me too it's motivation to look up and to see what's around me. And that's a very precious thing. You know, it's good to look down and it's good to look up. But if you primarily look down and you give looking up a try, it can be pretty enlightening. Just the degree to which you can perceive everything in front of you. It's great. And one of the most precious things Brittany's taught me, without a doubt. One of the things I'm most appreciative of. And so I have a camera, and it's not a good camera, and it's it's got a lot of limitations. One of the funny things about the camera was I was interested in buying another memory card because I only have 256 megabytes, and so that makes about 160 photos per photo shoot that I can make, which sort of limits what I can do and makes me very conscientious of how many photos I'm taking. But, you know, it's got sort of, well, I'll get to that in a second. I went to a camera store to try and buy a new card, and the salesman helped me out, and this is all in Japanese, so very limited. And I told him what I wanted and showed him my camera, and he did a little research and came back and told me that they actually didn't sell the memory cards that my camera would use if it could use memory cards. The maximum amount of memory that my camera can hold is 1 gigabyte. And 1 gigabyte cards are no longer made. I think they start at 4 gigabytes now. And so he did a little bit more research after I asked him how old he thought the camera was, and he said that he probably thought it was 5 or 6 years old. And so that's a pretty good little testament to the speed at which technology is changing. I know a lot of people in my generation already feel like technology is passing us by. Me definitely included. And watching some TED Talks too has sort of reinforced that truth. So long story short, I wasn't able to buy a new memory card, and I am sort of stuck with my 256 megabyte card, which is a blessing and a curse. I think it's probably a blessing in the way that now I have to really focus on shots and make sure that, I'm not getting a blurry or a shadowy or, otherwise not good quality shot. I really have to endeavor to make each shot count and make it as beautiful as I want. And so in that way it's good. I have 156 exposures and I want them to be worth it, rather than having, unlimited capability and being able just to take cheap shots. So that's kind of good. But, I think the blessing is also the curse. I'm not able to do any more than 156 per session. So if I have a long day, shogunai. Shogunai ne. Can't be helped. So that's why I love my camera. And I started wearing, this will be the last point, started wearing a flannel shirt recently. It's become colder in Japan, and so a flannel shirt feels good. But also it has a chest pocket. And so recently, within this past week, I've been wearing this flannel shirt and keeping my camera, my notepad, and my calendar in that pocket, along with a pen. And it's been one of the best decisions I've made while I've been here, just to have everything consolidated to that one pocket. And now I can take pictures whenever the moment, whenever the mood, whenever the scene strikes. And I have very good and easy ability to write things down, which is a very precious thing to me. And so that's why I love my camera. And I intend on bringing it home with me and doing very similar things whence I return. So I'm still walking towards Ekimai. I took quite a little break. It's starting to get cold, probably close to 4 o'clock. 3:10. Sun will be setting in about an hour. And I'm going to go to Ekimai, play some drums, drink some coffee. I'm rereading a book, Stephen King book called On Writing, which is a great book. Highly recommend it. I read it when I was in Portland visiting Brittany, one of the best vacations I've ever had. And I guess that's where I'll leave it for now. Talk to you soon. Bye. All right. Something I usually like in podcasts, or have liked in the past, is when people who go places do sort of a sound tour. And so I just got to the front of the Ekimai train station. Ekimai literally means in front of the station. So I'm gonna walk through the station now and sort of give you a sound tour of what it's like. It's gonna be cool too, because it's gonna be sort of a swelling movement. Now it's not too loud. I'm at the mouth of it, but I'm gonna walk through it and it'll get louder, and then I'll walk out and just have this sort of in lieu of music for a little while, just for the interesting experience of hearing what it's like to be here in Japan. So without further ado. Well, another highly successful day in the old Ekimai. I'm actually currently passing by one of the first stores I went to, called Ride, Surf, and Sport. When I first came to Ekimai on my bike, looking for a store where I could register my bike so that if I got pulled over by the police, they would not think that I had stolen it. Japan is an interesting country. And I am currently traversing a semi-quiet respite that is sort of a alleyway that will take me maybe a fourth of the way back to the dorms. So I have about maybe a solid 10 minutes or so to talk in somewhat uninterrupted silence, although I'm about to come to a busy intersection, so I don't know how much longer I will get. Oh, green light, good. Be able to cross quickly. So today was very successful. Was able to explore a new grocery store and get some delicious purple potato chips that I'm very fond of. Bought an apple. Went to Tully's, the coffee shop that I like. Drank some coffee. Read like 30 pages of the Stephen King book. It's remarkably short, and again, an awesome book that I'd recommend to anyone who would like to read something interesting by Stephen King that is not fiction. Sort of like aspiring writers type deal. And then after that, I went over to the Keio Hachioji building after getting that coffee in my blood. I was definitely in the mood to play drums, and so I did. And took pictures of the drums as well to use, I think, as the album art for this this podcast. But there's a little bit of a roadblock. Roadblock. This way. Definitely this way. Well, so, good day. Probably spent about 3 or so hours in Ekimai, which is about the regular 3 to 4 hours a day whenever I'm not working. And wanted to at least do one more clip before I'm back at the dorms. And sort of an anecdote about something that happened recently. Since I've been taking all the pictures like I have, wanted to take, I guess, the camera on a tour of Ekimai and just take pictures of the things that I had been seeing and thought looked cool or interesting. And Lauren, my sister, she said that it was a lot like the Tour de l'Auberne photo shoot that I had done, where I just basically took the camera with me on my bike and took pictures of the whole process of going. And it's remarkably like that. Very similar. That's a stylistic thing about me that I like to do. Just sort of document step-by-step type. What would you call that? Step-by-step. Like to document things step-by-step. And so I was walking to Ekimai to do what I had just described, and I came to this shop that was like a Western-style portrait making shop that would make photos in a traditional Japanese way, which is sort of a complicated explanation. But anyway, basically just a place where you get your portrait made. And truth be told, I had probably intended on taking a picture of it so that I could make fun of it later when I posted it on Facebook, as I have been wont to do. On all my Facebook pictures from Japan, by and large, I've written captions and comments underneath the pictures talking about different aspects of consumerism and stuff that I feel like these pictures are illuminating. And so, in fairness, I probably was going to do something rotten with the picture. But before I could even snap the shot, I was standing in front of the store, and a man rushed out, I guess the owner of the shop, and very, very, frantic and very shaky and unstable kind of looking guy, and grabbed my camera, and just, was barking all this ridiculous, nasty-sounding Japanese at me. And so I was pretty taken aback, and I walked inside his store and, just started apologizing, and everything in Japanese, mind you, as well. Sumimasen, hontou ni sumimasen, really sorry. Choto wakarimasen, I don't really understand. Those sort of things, trying to neutralize the situation. And he was just so, he was so weird, this guy. He was like shaking and not making eye contact. It was very animalistic. Like he was mad enough to transcend the boundary between man and beast. He was pissed. And so we stood, and it was one of those situations where it's like very high emotions, high levels of like, I don't know, everything's firing on all cylinders, so it's kind of fuzzy to recollect. But this guy was trying to break my camera with his hands, like, ripping it like you would try to rip a phone book, which is like impossible unless you somehow have grip of steel, and he definitely did not. He tried banging my camera on a table, and he tried to take the batteries out and the card, and I just kept saying, Watashi no camera desu, it's my camera. And he was like sort of a smartass at that point, and he was just saying like, oh, so desu ne, which is like, yeah, it is, isn't it? A very, very weird situation. And so basically it fizzled out. I think he sort of lost some of the anger that he was feeling initially, especially because I wasn't coming at him with like some weird attitude. And so he eventually threw my camera back at me, and I caught it, and actually managed to save enough face to say, I'm really sorry, and bowed, and then I left. And when I was leaving, I was really nervous. I guess I'm used to being in America too much. I was nervous that he was going to shoot me, and so I could already feel like the hot lead piercing my back, just anticipating what I felt like was an inevitable thing, that he would run inside after I left and just go grab his gun. But in Japan, citizens aren't allowed to have guns. And so when I realized that, it was like a huge sigh of relief. Very, very convenient for me in that moment for that law to be, I guess, in action. And I told some of my friends that later. I was really happy that like I couldn't pull a gun on me. And they were like, yeah, but, Japanese tend to use swords and knives and things, but even those things weren't as scary as a gun. I feel like there's some sort of delay between someone pulling a sword on you and you actually being killed by it, whereas a gun can be a little bit more instantaneous and surprising. So that was crazy. And as I left, just sort of, reeling after the whole thing, and just kept saying like, and this is actually in the photo album that I made that day, the walk to Hachioji, to Ekimai. I called this guy a CFB, and so for all those adults out there listening, CFB definitely stands for crazy fucking bastard, which is just, I don't know, that's the only thing I could think to refer to that guy as I walked away, and just sort of, had to enunciate my internal dialogue. I was just like, what a crazy fucking bastard. God damn, just stuff like that. Just trying to dissipate some of that nervous energy. And so that was very interesting. Told everyone about it when I got back, and joked about it, of course, saying I had witnessed some real Japanese culture and stuff, and talked to my RAs about it. It was funny. A very interesting situation, very strange, and perhaps karmic in one way or another. But definitely will not be taking pictures of that guy's shop again. So he may rest assured. Although, when I went to Takao-san, Takao Mountain for the first time to hike it, I did go by his store, and I was tempted to take a picture out of spite. But I couldn't get to my camera in time. Zanen desu ne. Zanen. It's a shame, huh? Anyway, I've gotten to the crossroads where I need to turn left and re-enter the noisy roads that diminish my ability to conversate with y'all. So I'm going to end it here. Hopefully this was a nice little clip, a little anecdote, a little strange thing, a little bit of flavor of my Japanese, a little bit of flavor to my Japanese stories, and more to come. Bye-bye.
はい。